Today, we are going in the chambers with Sandy Chambers. Sandy has been a successful director of sales and marketing for Starwood Hotels and Resorts. She was part of the initial merger of Starwood Westin and Sheraton 18 years ago. And the rollout game-changing brand of W Hotels and Westin Heavenly Bed and Bath. Most recently, part of the transition of Starwood into Marriott. She has received multiple performance awards and is known for her turnaround ability, taking underperforming hotels and building powerful work environments that produce financial results. She is a facilitator of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, has a passion for transformation work, and has studied over 1,000 hours with Landmark Education and the Institute for Self-Actualization. Her team say she engages me to see possibilities, challenges me to understand my intentions, kicks my ass when I need it. She has a bottle of juju. She has been called a truth whisperer and a cultural shape shifter. Please welcome Sandy Chambers.
So there are defining moments for us as leaders. Those moments that set a trajectory for our life that we can never undo, but we can have a shift in context around. My defining moment was when I was 5 years old. I got a dress on that my grandmother had made me. My grandmother made all my clothes. I was from Southern Indiana, so grandmother's always made clothes for you. At that age, I'm dating myself. I got dressed. There was a beautiful long mirror in my parents' bedroom. I stood in front of the mirror and I thought, oh my gosh, I feel so beautiful. I was like, wow, I felt it even as a young child. I just felt so much of the excitement about feeling so beautiful. I went out to the patio area where my father was sitting on a lawn chair, and I said, Dad, I feel so beautiful. And I was twirling around. I feel so beautiful. I feel so beautiful. And my father looked at me and he said, don't you ever say anything like that about yourself again. I never want to hear that. That was my defining moment. That was the moment that I disconnected, that I lost connection to my true essence as a person. That led me 40 years down this road of seeking self-approval, finding myself outside of myself, connecting to my net worth instead of my self-worth. And that is what I think we are seeing today is our real missing trajectory point for leaders. That we have lost touch with our self-worth and we've become all about our net worth. So we're going to take a look at that today, and we're going to explore that so that you and I both become powerful leaders. Cool.
Okay. I love it. I want to hear more. give me one thing that could help me be better, my self-worth.
One thing is looking at how you're relating to life. Are your relationships are they healthy? Are they unhealthy? And that comes from the conversation within. My conversation for me was when I was when I was looking at myself very unhealthily, is that I was never going to own up to anything. You know, that there was this conversation that always ran in my head of I'm not gonna be enough. And from that, even this caricature of Sandy got to be developed. So the one thing that you can really look at is those real, raw conversations with yourself. The moment that you say you have the thought to withhold versus move powerfully, it's a self-worth issue. The moment that you have, I really can't say that to that person, it's a withhold. It's a self-worth issue versus an empowerment issue.
So you're asking us to be more aware of what our...
In my slide, Tricia, that it goes into, it's called raw leadership. And it's relating, awareness, and worth.
Okay.
So there are 3 aspects that I look at for us as leaders, is what is our relationships, what is our awareness, and what is our worth. And the relating is whether it's healthy or unhealthy. The awareness is whether we're using life as feedback or we're in denial. And then the worth piece is, are we coming from self-worth or are we coming from our net worth?
I love the net worth, self-worth statement. That really struck
And
me.
then part of it, what it is too, as I keep going on, goes into this thing of what I call, we have become managers of data. We become data managers. And I got this through the Simon Sinek and Seth Godin, where we've become managers of data instead of leaders of human beings. So instead of us leading human beings, we've become managers of human capital. And that's the big shift that I see. I've seen so much in my life at underperforming hotels and underperforming people that it is not the system, it's the worth. You get down to that self-worth issue for yourself and for my own self, and that's what I'm into this thing of exploring is, what the fuck is real self-worth? Like, I don't think I even know, because I've studied for so long and had so much head information, but I cannot get here from here. And once that disconnect, that defining moment happened for me, it's this whole process of going back around to seeing what is it that is really my self-worth. And the reason that I can see that in so many people and see that in so many ways of underperforming in situations is because of all the work that I've done, that I've put myself through. That's what I think a lot of people getting down to that raw leadership, they're not willing to go there with themselves. They just want to, keep the tactics and the strategies, and I've read these 5 steps, and I'm engaging these 5 steps, and ooh, this is cool, and it's getting me short-term results, but it's not sustainable. I mean, 40 years into my living my life disconnected, I was at the top of my game. I had a beautiful husband, I had a beautiful condo, I had money in the bank, I had all the things that were fabulous, and I was getting cortisone shots in my back, and I was losing a tooth because I had ground and cracked a crown, and my body was saying, you are not connected. You're not connecting. And my value was in my net worth. And that's what I see all the time. People's value is in their net worth because they've disconnected from that value of self-worth.
So what was the catalyst for you to make that shift?
I am a believer in principle, and I believe that everything communicates. And I believe that consciousness creates. And so my thoughts were becoming things. So my thoughts were recreating a body that was getting cortisone shots in their back. And I am like, something is going on here that I'm not listening to and that I'm not connecting to. I am creating tremendous value out here, but there's something that is going on in here that I am not connecting to. So that made my shift in me that started to say, how do I love myself? Like what's really going on here? What is that love? And then what I also understand too, which keeps me on this trajectory, is that I cannot give out unless I've got it in here. And no matter what I say and no matter what kind of dog and pony show I produce, if I don't get it in here, then I can never be a powerful, great impactor to people to really make a global impact in the world, which is what I'm up to.
And how is your health now?
Great. My health is great. I've down 50 pounds. I can walk and I can exercise. And the other aspect of it is my relationship to my health. You know, I have this beautiful hip issue that reminds me every day to be present in this body and to be grateful and thankful. And that in itself, I can take you down all kinds of long stories about. The other thing that I did was I tried so many different techniques to lose weight. And what I really am finding out, it's my withhold issue. It's my withhold from people, from life, of that self-worth that is keeping this wonderful stuff holding on. Because I've been gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free, processed food-free, soda-free, fast food-free. I've been all of that free for
Doesn't sound very free.
4 years. Yes, right, for 4 years in my life,
Good
right?
line there, yeah.
Yes, for 4 years in my life. And every time I would take something on, like I even took on a 6-week colonic, not colonic, but a full body cleanse, and part of that was colonics. Full body cleanse. Every time I take on something, somebody says to me, San, you take that on, that weight's just gonna drop right off of you. I take it on. And it would still hang in there. And so that's this incredibly amazing journey that I'm on about really getting back down to the core issue of self-worth and who we are. And again, I just go back to seeing that. I think that's why when people call me like a shapeshifter, there's a lot of times where I can just listen to what people, Leandro's been there with me, Suzanne's been there with me, right? I can just hear like what people are saying and go, and there are a lot of things I don't say to people, but there are certain things that I do say that, because I can just hear that disconnect from their value. I can hear them disconnecting from their worth.
Yes,
Right? We
yes.
just had that
She
conversation.
will tell you.
Yes, so that's where I think we all of us have that ability. It's just that we don't have that connection to ourselves, which means we can't be that for others as leaders. Does that answer your
So
question, help you?
So with the questions that I
Yes.
asked and got
Yes.
you to talk some more, is most of this what you will say in a program?
Yes.
And the
Well, I'm developing this in the program because what I did today, the feedback was that I talked a lot about theories and I had a lot of great stories and I had a lot of great theories, but I never connected. Like I never had people, as Mike Ween said, a Scooby-Doo moment. So when you said talk more, or when you guys, I saw your faces, I was like, I think I've got a Scooby-Doo moment here. And if you ever know what his Scooby-Doo moments are, yeah, great, yeah, yes. So that's the part for me too, like my own.
So what was the Scooby-Doo moment
The
that you perceived?
The Scooby-Doo moment was seeing all of your all's faces go, like, shut, like what is that for me? And what did that, like that moment of connection to go, fuck, that goes on for me too. Or that I've seen that in someone else, or I see that in myself. If I can make that connection, then I know that the question for people, once they have the question, then they're gonna explore and they're gonna look. So that, I don't know, this was my test,
Yeah.
to throw it out there to say, well, great. I mean, you guys could say, oh, that was nice, and like, I got a little water work here, but that isn't really going anywhere, right? So that's the other thing.
So Cindy, do you have a good relationship with your father? Do you like your
Yes.
dad? Okay.
Well, I mean, he's deceased now, but
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a very
Oh,
different.
I was a daddy's girl.
Okay. So I had a very different reaction to that story.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I thought that you had shared before that you had a good relationship with your father. That felt very abusive in the way that it was told, right? And I get it. So we all have this narrative, and we all see things through the eyes of the 5-year-old that heard it, not through the eyes of the seasoned adult that said, learn some humility or whatever. It didn't endear me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I don't know in the intro if that serves you or not. It may not, but it didn't endear me at that moment. I loved when you were twirling around and you were so expressive when you talked about the mirror. I was leaning in, and I'm like, wow, I could just totally feel this. And then it felt like not just that the wind had come out, but that it had been just like slammed out of you.
Which
And
it was.
but it felt abusive. And it was like, oh gosh, how are we going to deal with this abuse now?
Yeah.
Right. So it's a.
Now, do you think that you would have connection if, as I go into the story of showing how I used that to get to this beautiful place that I am today?
So it could have been interesting. I did write down. I'm like,
Okay.
you know what? I don't know if the dad story served you in the beginning because you're still trying to connect with the audience, and it might have served you well as you went through. And it felt like it wasn't so heavy, but I felt like you hit me with a Mack truck, right, at that particular moment. And I get it,
Yeah.
but it's just a matter of what is the emotion and the impact you want to have in the very beginning. If you want to create a safe place, and a lot of it depends on who the audience is.
I don't necessarily need to create a safe place because that's what we've all been in, is safe places. So
Yes,
this
she
is
wants
about ripping off the Band-Aid.
But if you don't create a safe place for me as an audience member, I'm going to shut you out. That's the difference, right? So it's not about you having responsibility for me, but if you tell me a story that's going to make me feel uncomfortable or start a dialogue in my own head, I'm no longer listening to you. So it all just depends on what your audience or what your objective is. So it's just something to think about. I didn't love the story. I loved the story, and I loved where you were going with it in the beginning. But I don't know. It fell flat for me. And again, remember, these are all opinions.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's all that is.
Yeah.
So the only other thing I put in there. So you have a hand thing. So that immediately puts a barrier in front of you and the audience. So when you are telling your stories, you're expressive, your hands are out here, just think about kind of where your hands go. I do that. I do this. I'm like this, so it looks good, or it feels good because you do something with your hands, but that was the other thing that I noticed. I thought you need to tell more stories though, because that was the thing that really kind of just got me, your expression, and you felt it, and that was really powerful. The standing in front of the mirror and the twirling around, I love that.
Thanks. Cool.
I think there's really good ways I had a similar reaction to the story, but I think there's ways that you can bring levity into that story. And I think if you watch yourself on that tape when you're telling the story about dieting and you're like, and then you just
Oh,
wait.
yeah.
Like that was for me the most captivating moment. That was you just being very conversational. People like that. People love stories, but they don't like to be led off the cliff. And so I think one way you sort of set it up as being like, we have this one moment. And my interpretation of what you're saying is we actually have a lot of these moments. And you sort of are pushing away the audience if we didn't have that one moment, but we all have had moments like that. And it's really a cultural thing where we, and you can say, look, my dad didn't mean to crush my soul, right? He wasn't thinking about that. He thought it was his responsibility to tell me that culturally we require humility. But we maybe are getting to that in the wrong way, and that wasn't the right way to do that, because what that ended up being was the first of many messages that I got over the course of my life, which was I cannot celebrate my greatness.
Right.
Other people have to celebrate it for me, and that's where I need to find my self-worth. And so you can sort of try and be like, obviously my dad's not a monster, I love him, I have a great relationship with him, he was trying
That
to
would've
be a
changed
good
it.
dad.
Yeah.
And then you switch to that. And then with the hand things, this is just the other thing. People really trust, and they say like all the TED Talks that go viral, everybody comes out, they do 3 things. They come out and they show your hands. Vanessa Van Edwards also talks about this, where naturally we just have this thing in our brain where we can't trust people, we can't see their hands. And you don't even know it's happening. And so you'll see on TED Talks, people come out and go, I'm going to tell you 3 things. And they make sure their hands are very visible. And women in particular, we like to sit and talk where we're hiding our hands, like sometimes like under your seat, or like we'll sit on our hands, and that it's just, that helps me when I go out on stage to remember, like, oh, don't whatever you do, don't hide your hands.
You know what I
It's
think
a hard habit to break though.
what I think is so fascinating is that 2 weeks ago, the hand issue was not there. And that was because I was in my head and I was doing a presentation.
You weren't when you were telling your story though.
Nope.
You were all,
So
and
it's
when you were
fascinating.
answering her questions,
Mhm.
you were not, you
Yeah.
weren't doing this.
Yeah, see, I wasn't in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, but maybe I was in my
And you did
head.
the amazing thing where you stopped and we told that
It's
second
interesting.
story.
Anyway.
It's really good.
Yeah, I need to get you on track.
Do we have time?
We have.
Go ahead, Keller.
we have
There's
three
a
minutes.
couple
I mean,
things I
they-
want to say after.
2 minutes.
I'll talk to you
3
afterwards. I got a
minutes.
couple things for you.
Okay.
But Keller, why don't you go ahead?
We have
No,
we
you,
just have 3 minutes left, though.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you did get my attention as you did everybody else with the self-worth versus the net worth. I mean, you have a whole talk just with that. And I loved it. And I also like, oh, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Aaron. I really like what Aaron said, because people do want to hear stories about fall and redemption and coming back. And I think there is a way to redeem your father, redeem other people in that whole process, and be able to bring him back in, so it's not the bummer that Christy's saying, because the first thing I thought, well, that's child abuse, that's what it is. The other thing, just on a personal level, from a guy who most people here know my story, went through quite a spiritual and personal transformation. I think you're probably right. Have you seen the movie called The Shift, Wayne Dyer, The Shift? I've seen it 40 times. And it literally I've seen it 40 times.
It's a good movie.
It is a good movie, and Wayne does a great job of addressing, as you know, some of the issues that you're struggling with inside your own head. But I don't want to capitalize on time on that, Keller.
So I'm gonna throw a little bit of a quick wrench. I've been in performing arts my entire life. Your hands did not bother me. I didn't even recognize them. No faze. Your story did not faze me in the least. I knew, because I had seen your speech before, that it was just a tiny piece of a whole thing and there would be recovery. Didn't faze me in the least. And so probably it's not advantageous that I know you. You know what I mean? I think they're probably more objective because they don't know your whole speech and everything, so maybe they know more how people would respond. But again, like, I didn't notice your hands at all, no, dating myself. I'm dating myself. Nothing about your weight, nothing about your age. You are fabulous. You are fabulous, okay? And then the other thing, just the content. Self-worth versus net worth was great. Your whole speech, your whole entire speech is just fabulous. And I think you do not have to relieve the audience. If you want them to know that your dad hurt your feelings, they can sit with that. Because within the context of your whole speech, there is recovery and redemption and release. So I just want there to be temperance, because that was heavy hitting, but they haven't seen the whole thing. So it's, just keep that in mind.
Cool.
Checks and
Yes.
balances.
And I was gonna say, I hadn't heard the whole thing, but I had a different perspective. Sometimes I like to be shocked.
Me too.
So for me, I liked it. Maybe the tone could be, but again, it drew me in, that I wanted to know more and what that defining moment was like.
Yeah.
Can I just add right to that?
Sure.
You know, I've heard that story a few times, and that was the first time I heard it, when the reaction with your dad that vigorously. If you're, I like, if you said he said this, and then your reaction to it was, what? Or whatever that is. Let it be about your reaction, not his,
What he said.
what he said. He said it, and because the truth is, we don't remember how he actually said it, but the impact is what it did to you. So you responding to even the calm way of saying that, just a thought. Cool.
All right, thank you.